Howdy, folks. Welcome back to T. Lokes. It's been an eventful end of August/beginning of September for me. I was at the Good Food Expo helping friend of the pod, Kristen Marvin, and seeing amazing farmers and food producers from the Southwest. I was also tabling for the Black Sun Saga at Tucson Comic-Con, then out on a family camping trip, as well as celebrating my second wedding anniversary. Things have been great, but busy. And I know we've missed an episode last month, and I just want to thank you all for your patience. This episode was recorded at the end of August, so the Good Food Forum and Expo has already passed us by. But be sure to check out Local First Arizona's events page in the episode notes to get involved. Today, we have a great episode where we talk with Nick Spinelli from Local First, so stick around. Welcome to T. Lokes, Tucson's local business podcast. I'm your host, L. Connor McEverly, and in each episode, we embark on a journey to connect with the passionate minds behind the businesses and nonprofits that make our community thrive. Join me as I sit down with the owners, visionaries, and change makers who pour their hearts into shaping the local landscape. We explore the challenges, triumphs, and unique journeys that define Tucson's business community. From the corner coffee shop to the innovative startups and impactful nonprofits, T. Lokes is your window into the diverse stories that make our city special. Tune in and get ready to get connected. This is T. Lokes. Howdy, folks, and welcome to T. Lokes, your Tucson local business podcast. I'm your host, L. Connor McEverly, and joining me via virtual chat is the Business Engagement Manager from Local First Arizona, a nonprofit organization committed to community and economic development throughout the state of Arizona. It is my pleasure to introduce to the show, Nick Spinelli. Nick, how are you doing today?
Connor, I'm doing great. And let me tell you, as someone that used to run a podcast back in the day, it is so weird to hear someone else do that intro, but you are great at it. And I am stoked to be here today.
I'm really stoked to have you. Thanks for coming on the show, and I appreciate that. It must be interesting being on the other side of the interview, right?
Yep. I'm looking forward to it, actually.
Good. Me too. So let's just dive right in. Tell me about Local First. What is the mission of this organization?
Absolutely. So I'm actually going to read it to you. I'm
Please
not going to
do.
riff. I'm going to give it to you straight. We are a nonprofit organization committed to community and economic development throughout Arizona. And our work connects people, locally owned businesses, and communities for meaningful actions that build a diverse, inclusive, and prosperous Arizona economy. So, great, awesome. We do community and economic development. What does that actually look like, right? What is the work that we do? So there's a couple different pillars to our organization. One of them is consumer education. Another one is small business training and education. Another one is programs and events and campaigns that make it easier to discover and participate in local business. And then our root cause work, targeting systems of inequity and building prosperity for Arizonans, really working to make the economy work for us, making it more inclusive, equitable, just all of those things, right? What a lot of people don't know about us is that we actually aren't just a networking organization. We work on business development. We work with nonprofits in a variety of capacities. And we also work hand in hand with a lot of other really amazing community organizations, especially here in Southern Arizona, to do what we do. And I can speak more to that in just a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's just like so clear. And this is why I was so excited to get you guys on, because you do so much, just like engaging people from the bottom to the top in the different ways that you help the local business owners, I mean, rural communities, LGBTQ plus communities, Black owned businesses. Like, you guys really are wide reaching. And so it was fun, researching what you guys do, but also like a little overwhelming. Like, you guys have a ton.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's all on our website. And, folks, in my experience, they typically know the organization through whatever program or service they first participated with us on. And when they start to learn about all the other things that they do, they're like, wow, you do work on food systems. Wow, you do work in green business. Wow, you're in rural communities. Like, wow, you have accelerator programs for entrepreneurs of color. And, my answer is always yes, we do. And that's really cool, right?
Yeah.
So that's why whenever someone asks me, what do we do? I try to bottom line it as simply community and economic development. Very comprehensive, very holistic. And that
Totally.
wasn't always the case, right? We originally started as a business advocacy organization in Metro Phoenix, but I think what we discovered over the last 20 years is that if you really want to create lasting and meaningful change, especially on an economic level, you have to take that comprehensive approach. Yes, you can advocate for people, that's great,
Right.
but it becomes so much more powerful when you bring in those additional resources, knowledge, content, expertise to really help people grow and scale in the ways that will create long term impact in their community.
Right. Right. I kind of want to narrow the scope a little bit here and talk about like what ways do you guys help local businesses in particular?
Yes, great question. So I'm going to start broad and then we'll gradually get more specific, right?
Sounds good.
Imagine that you are a business owner. And one of the questions I get all the time is what sorts of businesses do you work with? Well, you could be product based, you could be service based, you could be a brick and mortar retail, you could be an online retailer. Maybe you're not selling a product. Maybe you are an artist. Maybe you are a bookkeeper. Maybe you're a woodworker. We do work with several woodworkers here in Tucson. Really, regardless of what your niche is, your target audience, your product, your service, if you come to us, there's a couple different ways that we can help. And the main one is our Business Coalition program. So if you join the Business Coalition, it is exactly what it sounds like. It is a coalition of locally owned Arizona based businesses. And maybe you just want to network and build connections. Maybe you are looking for on demand education and resources. You're someone that likes to learn at your own pace, right?
Right.
Maybe you're looking for referrals within the community. Maybe you need dedicated access to capital and you want to start a relationship with a local bank or credit union, but you're not sure how. Or you know that we have that relationship and that you would like to leverage that in your work, right? Maybe you have a business idea and you're not sure how to activate it. You could go through one of our accelerator programs or one of our boot camps to get to where it is you're trying to go, right?
Right.
So, really, if someone comes to us and they want to activate within our network, the way I always explain it is you have a menu of options available to you. You could join the coalition and just make yourself more visible in person and online, and you could leave it at that. Maybe that's good enough for you. But if you want to go further, and really get into that business development track that I was starting to speak to, we have a variety of events, programs, and services that are all designed to enable a business owner, depending on who they are, where they're coming from, and what level of help they need to get to where it is they want to go. Let me add something about the Business Coalition.
Sounds great.
And this is something that I think is really important. A lot of folks, I think, in my experience, perceive us as an organization that helps small businesses directly. And we do that, right?
Right.
But one of the most important functions of the Business Coalition, in my mind, like I said, is connecting locally owned businesses with each other. So let's say you are a tent pole, what I would call a tent pole business here in the community. You are strong, you are established, you are successful. Maybe you don't necessarily have obvious pain points or challenges that you're looking to sort out with us. But what you do have is that legacy as a small business in this community and the ability to act as a shade tree, to use an ecological metaphor, right? To
Right.
bring other up and coming businesses underneath you to help them grow and scale and evolve, right? I think that's one of the most beautiful things about the Business Coalition as a service is that for some of those more established businesses, it is a really brilliant opportunity for them to provide mentorship and expertise to other entrepreneurs in our network that need it. Because so often people have the tools and the knowledge and the skills that they need to get to where they want to go. Sometimes all they need is just someone else to help them see that, right?
Totally.
And it's someone who's been there and done that and worked in their field, or maybe they're working in a completely different field, but they could give them a new perspective that they didn't have previously, right?
Totally.
And I have story after story after story I could tell you of connections that we have made here in Tucson, specifically my beat, right? Where I just introduced people over email or said, hey, you should get coffee with this person. Didn't hear anything for a few months, which is totally normal, right? People are
Right.
busy. And then all of a sudden, you'll see a product of that and you'll go, whoa, that person built a website for this other person. That looks incredible.
Right.
Or, oh my gosh, I introduced this person to that person and now y'all are doing a webinar together. And you had 50 people in the room for that. Small things that eventually lead to big outcomes later. That feels really powerful to me.
Absolutely. And as someone who, is part of the business coalition, like I have already seen that story for myself since like joining and talking with you with Local First. I got in contact with friend of the pod, Kristen Marvin, and
Yes.
we've been working together, and it's been great. It's been a lot of fun helping her out and kind of like working together. I've certainly learned new things from her. I feel like we're helping expand her show. This is not about me, but just throwing it out there, like, yeah, there's definitely these great connections that are made, and it is so powerful. I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs or a lot of like people who are new in business don't necessarily think about how important having that community is to really getting some traction and growing your business. And so it's awesome to see that you guys have such a wide range, just like a litany of different resources to help people at all different sorts of levels, and encouraging folks that already are at a pretty high functioning level to uplift others in the community, and kind of empower the local community, the local economy. And kind of going off that a little bit, could you talk to me a little bit about the impact of like buying or supporting local has on a community?
Oh, yes. And I'm glad you asked because the thing that I was thinking about as we were talking about the mission, the vision, the programs, the services is okay, that's all really cool, right? Like the work that we do. Why do we do it? So let me talk about local banking for a moment because I
Yeah.
think this is going to serve as a really nice example for some of the things that we're talking about. And I should note for listeners that I'm going to keep some of the information that I am sharing broad right now deliberately because in my
Right.
role, and we'll talk about this later, I am not a content expert. I am more of a generalist, air traffic control, as it were, right? So local banking in Arizona. If you look at any of the surrounding states in the Southwest, California, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, even New Mexico, most of them have several community banks and credit unions. I think California, this should come as no surprise, has a few hundred. I believe Colorado does too. In Arizona, we have less than 20.
Wow.
And so sometimes the term banking desert gets thrown around in these discussions. And what does that mean? That means that access to capital is often limited locally. And for credit unions in particular, which are not for profit institutions who often pass on cost savings to their members as a result of that structure, right? Let's say that you live in a county or a community where there isn't a local bank or credit union, you may not have a direct line or as strong of a relationship with your bank as you would otherwise. So let's say that you need access to capital. Let's say that you are looking for an interest rate that would be more favorable to your business. Let's say that there is a crisis like a global pandemic and you need
Right.
immediate relief for your business. Well, it isn't universally true, but often you are going to be more likely to get the help that you need when you know your banker and you have a relationship with them. And to go a step further, let's say that you do bank locally or you are a member of a local credit union and that is where your business keeps its money. You are helping to keep more money recirculating in the local economy, which means more investment in the place that you live. And that could translate into any number of improvements, whether that is infrastructure, whether that is tax investments, whether that's quality of life for residents, whatever, that impact would be diminished if that money were to be moved into an institution that was not based in the state or the community that you live, right?
Right.
And so I want to circle back to our name for a moment. Obviously, the name of the organization is Local First, not local only, right? We
Right.
joke about this sometimes internally. Not everyone has the ability to bank 100% locally, but if you
Right.
do, or you move as much of your money as you can to a local institution, the impacts can be pretty profound. We're talking on the bank side or the credit union side, potentially millions of dollars of investment power on their part to come back to the community, which can only ultimately help you as a small business owner.
Right. Wow. So that's pretty profound. I mean, millions of dollars, like potentially millions of dollars kept in your community, and that can look really different. I'm sure the impact on even like rural communities would be like more profound or perhaps easier to see. And so I could only imagine the kind of impact that it would have on these smaller communities, keeping your money within it. So that's interesting. Howdy, listener. Are you also a podcaster seeking to stand out in the crowded audio landscape? I'm here to help. L. Connor Voice, LLC offers top-tier audio engineering, meticulous content management, and more, all tailored to save you time and elevate your podcast to new heights of professionalism. With L. Connor Voice, you can focus on what you do best, creating captivating content, while I handle the rest. Say goodbye to hours spent tweaking audio levels and managing uploads. I ensure your podcast shines with polished sound quality and seamless delivery. Ready to take your podcast to the next level? Contact L. Connor Voice, LLC today and make producing your podcast as easy as hitting record. For more information, go to lconnorvoice.com. Links are in the episode notes. You mentioned earlier that you help provide resources or encouragement for consumers to shop local. What does that kind of look like? What resources do you offer?
Ooh, good question. So I will name a few right now. The most well-known of them all is probably our local business directory on our website.
Gotcha.
There are several thousand local businesses and nonprofits listed in that directory. And so that is the front facing portion of our business coalition program, right? If you want to know who is in the coalition and give them your business, you will go to the business directory. That directory averages really strong web traffic each month. And that's something that I know from talking with our marketing team. We regularly link back to that on our social media channels and our newsletters, et cetera. So, speaking of social media, all of our accounts are statewide. And so, another really beautiful thing about the platforms that we've built is that we have the ability to highlight what our business coalition members are doing almost anywhere in the state of Arizona. And so, at any given moment, you could be getting content from one of our accelerator programs and the students that we're working with. You could be looking into what a business is doing in Sierra Vista or Nogales or Wilcox or Benson here in Southern Arizona, to give you an example, right? But let's say that, we want to go above and beyond just these passive sources of education like the directory and the social media content. We also run a variety of annual events and campaigns to really pull in consumers and activate them more intentionally within our network. I'll give you two examples. One is our annual Move Your Money campaign. And I started to touch on that earlier, just not a name, right? The goal of Move Your Money is very simple. It is to help consumers and business owners not only explore what it would look like to move their money into a locally owned institution, but connect them directly with a local banker to have an exploratory conversation, right?
Right.
Because that might be intimidating for someone that's never done that. Or they might have some questions about how that could look different from the way that they're banking currently. Let's just go ahead and demystify all of that. We'll bring you to a really fun networking event, and it's super low stakes, low pressure. You get to have a conversation with multiple different reps and just ask questions, right? The other one is our Indie Week campaign, and that typically happens in late June or early July. Here in Arizona, it feels especially pertinent because summertime, as you were just telling me actually before we started recording the show, summertime can be a slow period for some businesses, especially if they are serviced or retail based. If you haven't ever been to Arizona, and this is for all you out of state listeners, it gets really warm here during the summer.
Yeah, just a
And
little.
inevitably, right, a lot of foot traffic goes down during that period. Well, Indie Week is designed in part to get that foot traffic back up and to get people out into their local community, patronizing their locally owned businesses. And so you can find more about both of those campaigns on our website. Move Your Money typically happens in April. And like I said, Indie Week is typically late June or early July.
Gotcha. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. I've
It is.
I've gone to a couple of events, and they are a really good time. They're fun to get immersed into, without a doubt.
Yeah, summer is always an interesting time of year in Arizona, like I said, because I think we're all just looking for ways to stay engaged and in contact with each other in what is otherwise, a few months of probably lower energy, lower activity in the community. And the event that you came out to last month in July is a great
Yeah.
example. We decided to have a monsoon celebration with a local business called Trail Dust Town here in
Yeah.
Tucson. And that was fun. We got a bunch of local artisans and small businesses and even utility companies, environmental organizations, all to
Yeah.
come out and basically celebrate the coming of the rain and hopefully generated a little bit of revenue for some of our members. And
Yeah.
I think we're going to do it again in the future. It might not look exactly like that, but we have a lot of fun and we like to think out of the box like that sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a ton of fun. And it definitely, we've had a good monsoon. So if you just keep it up, maybe we'll just keep having
Yes,
great
it actually has
monsoons.
rained this year.
Yeah.
That is always fun. The first year I lived in Arizona, some of the locals told me that it was a non-soon when it had rained, and
Yeah.
that really stuck with me, that term.
Yeah. And monsoons are brutal.
Yeah,
Just brutal.
monsoons are brutal, but this year was a monsoon, capital M,
Oh
which we
yeah.
are very happy about.
Yes. And so is my garden.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
bet. I
Yeah.
bet.
So I wanna talk a little bit more about your experiences with Local First. So what drew you to work with Local First, and can you tell me a little bit more about your role in the organization?
I knew about Local First Arizona long before I ever worked here. So, without getting too deep into my professional background, I spent almost 10 years in experiential or informal education. A lot of that teaching middle and high school kids outside on national public lands.
Nice.
And gradually over time, I started to transition more in a direction of activism and advocacy. And I was doing some environmental organizing here in Tucson right around the time that the pandemic hit. And I met our previous Tucson director, Mike Peel. And Mike is a great guy. He has since transitioned from our organization to a couple of other pursuits, but sustainability was a passion of his, and that's how we had originally connected. Our Green Business Boot Camp program, now known or previously known as Scale Up at the time Mike was running it, actually started right here in Tucson. It's now statewide. And so I remember connecting with Mike. I interviewed him a few times. I really enjoyed our interactions. And very similar to what you said at the top of the show, I remember popping onto our website and doing a bit of due diligence and going, wow, do they do a
Right.
lot? And it's not just green business, right?
Right.
So I kept that in the back of my mind. And when I was actually searching for a new full time role a few years later, I thought, hey, that's right. Local First is here in Tucson. I wonder what they're up to. And we were actually hiring for a number of new positions. Our current director, Jessica Barfield, was pretty new in her role, probably 4 or 5 months in. And it really was just an instance of right place, right time, right fit. And here I am almost 2 years later. So, what
Awesome.
is my role? It has evolved over the course of my time here, but my title is Tucson Business Engagement Manager. And so in our organization, I think the simplest way to describe it would be some of us are specialists. We know a lot about a particular area of expertise or a particular type of content. I am a generalist in my
Hmm.
role. So really, I fulfill, I think, three main functions here in the community. I manage all of our regional events. So that's networking and educational opportunities. I manage a lot of our regional marketing. So, not replacing the work that our statewide marketing team does, but really helping to supplement their efforts and just get the word out about the cool things that we have going on.
Right.
And then I also spend a lot of time one to one with clients. That could be coffee dates with business owners. That could be Zoom calls, just talking through some of the pain points that they have. But really, as I said earlier, acting as air traffic control for people that are new to us, as well as folks that have been in our business coalition network for a while, to say, hey, what is it that you need? where are the resources, who are the people that you want to connect with, and how can I get you to where it is that you want to go, right? And so often they'll start with me, and then I will connect them to my colleague Moises for Green Business, or my colleague Anna for our Forza Local program, or to Jessica if they want to talk about a broader partnership with our organization, whatever it looks like, right? One of our community partners, et cetera. My goal is to get people to where they need to go. And I think that is how I would describe the business engagement piece.
Gotcha. Thank you for breaking that down for us. I appreciate that. So within your years working here, what was one of your first moments of achievement or a milestone for you?
Hmm. You know, I I'm going to give you a recent example because I think this will resonate with a lot of people. I don't know if you have been on LinkedIn lately. Of course, you've been on LinkedIn lately. But there were quite a few photos flying around from our August mixer that we co-hosted with Startup Tucson and the Tucson LGBT Chamber of Commerce. We had over 230 people at Highwire.
Wow.
This event was popping. I mean, like block party levels of energy, right? Where people were coming in off the street downtown to basically see what was going on, right?
Right.
And then you're like, hey, it's a business networking event. And people almost, I had one person, they almost didn't believe me. They said,
Yeah.
this is an event for professionals. And I said, yes, we are all here business networking. And they came in, and this person made a bunch of connections, and afterward came up to me on their way out, and they said, "This is amazing. The energy that you have here, how friendly people are, the representation in the room, the number of people that are here, the diversity." They were like, "This is really incredible. When is your next event?" Back to your question. What was one of your first moments of achievement, a milestone? Don't worry, we're coming back around.
Of course.
Uh, when I was 2 weeks into my role, 2 weeks after being hired, that is, I went to my very first local first event, and shout out to Black Rock Brewers on the east side. They hosted us that February. There were about 15 people at that mixer. And for what it was a really great event. People, again, were super friendly. Like, I immediately felt the culture, the fit, the vibes, as the kids would say, right?
Right.
Um, the energy was good, but there were 15 people in that room. And I knew at that very first event, okay, we are going to have to grow this thing, right? Because I think the vision is much bigger than that. So to go from 15 people at that very first event that I went to, one of whom actually now works for us, Moises is our business outreach and engagement manager. And at the time, he was in another role, but he was one of those 15 who walked up to me and shook my hand and said, "Hey, welcome aboard. I'm so glad to see you're part of this community." To go from 15 people on a February evening to 230
Hmm.
about a year and a half later, it feels like a really big deal. And I want to be clear, of course, that that was a team effort. One, it took all five of us that are now here in Tucson on the business support team to build the community up to that point.
Right.
But then also, it took a certain level of trust in the people that we work with to really see the vision and where it was we were going, right? So I want to give a really big shout out to Tucson, capital T, the community here,
Yeah.
because you don't get that many people in a room unless people really believe in the work that you're doing, right?
Totally.
And so when I walked into this mixer last week, and again, there were 200 plus people, and it was standing room only. I mean,
Yeah.
elbows to my sides, like just,
Yeah.
basically going with the flow of the crowd. I really did have a meta moment at one point where I stepped back and I was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get really busy in our work and we don't always stop and pause and appreciate the moment. And I was like, okay, this is really incredible the way that we've been able to bring people together like this. So that felt like a milestone for sure.
Absolutely. And that's seriously, I mean, the growth over a year and a half, and then just like the culminated efforts of everyone to see that much growth is really amazing. And one thing I feel like I noted when you were talking about that is regardless of when you had that 15 person to 230 person like occupancy or that many people show up, there was still such like good quality in connections that people were making. And I just wanted to make note of that because I think that that's really significant.
It is significant in the sense that we have actually been in Tucson for almost 15 years. And so for a lot of that time, we just had our heads down. We were just doing the work. We only had one or two staff people here. The operation was a lot smaller. However, I think to your point, the quality and the culture have always been there. And so now we just have the opportunity with more staff people and more resources to execute that at a larger scale, right? So the through line was always there. And I guess that's where I should give a shout out to our org too, because we had a strong foundation to work with, even
Yeah,
coming in the very beginning there in my time.
totally, totally. So we've touched a little bit about, a previous milestone and achievement. What is a goal that you were striving for now? What's on the horizon?
Ooh, good question. So, one of the things that we've really been focused on and what I will call year two, because a lot of our team here in Tucson, we're all kind of on the same track together, right? We all came in at the same time, et cetera. One of
Yeah,
our big goals for year two was to start laying the groundwork for the return of some of our signature programs and events here in this community. And I'll give you two examples for that. One, is our Fuerza Local program. So Fuerza Local literally translates to local first in Spanish, right?
yeah,
And that is our Spanish preferred business accelerator. That is a cohort based program. It runs for about 17 weeks and it covers all the basics of starting a business if you are a Spanish preferred entrepreneur. And we've been running this program in Phoenix for some time now. We have a dedicated team of people up there for recruitment and teaching and all of that. Graduated several hundred businesses. You can actually
wow,
find those on our website if you want to read more.
right.
And we had run 4 cohorts in Tucson previously, but for a number of reasons, we just needed time to ramp back up here. We needed funding, we needed to put the infrastructure in place, we needed to find the instructors who could actually teach the curriculum. And this year, we were able to do it. My colleague
Nice.
Anna is now our Forza Local manager for Tucson. Cohort 5 just kicked off this August, and they're going to be meeting every Thursday, basically through the end of the year. And at the end, they will be ready to not only graduate the program, but actually kickstart their business or take it to the next level, right? So
Wow.
that program coming back was a huge deal because there was a lot of demand for that, a lot of questions about when is Fuerza coming? When is Fuerza coming? Well, we did it. Fuerza's back. And we still have more work to do in terms of continuing to recruit for future cohorts and really setting up the financial foundation for long-term success for that program. But just getting it back online has been huge. That is one example. The other example is something that is right around the corner. And so I'm
Mhm.
jumping ahead. I'm going out of order. I'm taking a question that you were going to ask me later, most likely. Our Arizona Good Food Forum and Expo event is
Yeah.
coming up on August 27th, which might actually be the day after this episode
It
airs.
will
We'll
be
see.
tomorrow. Yes.
There it is. It will be tomorrow. Uh, the Good Food Forum and Expo is a statewide regional event that we hold each year. It came back to Tucson this year for the first time since 2018. And again, just a lot of groundwork necessary to bring that event here, get the right partners and sponsors in the room, find the right people to attend who would benefit from it, right?
Right.
Well, what is the Good Food Forum and Expo? It is a celebration of Arizona's local food system. And so the morning is a proper conference with a keynote and breakout sessions really exploring Arizona's local food economy. This year, we're actually going to have a dedicated form track focused on indigenous knowledge, traditional ecological knowledge, which
Fascinating.
I'm personally very excited about.
Oh, yeah.
And then the afternoon is the expo. These used to be two separate events and they were eventually combined. The expo will feature over 80 Arizona food based producers in about 30,000 square feet of expo space and a few hundred attendees who are all buyers looking to make B2B wholesale connections. So I'll give you an example. If you're a restaurant here in Tucson, let's say that you are sourcing your produce from X place or you're sourcing your compostable paper plates from another place, whatever it is, whatever items that you are using to drive your business. Maybe you want to shift some of that procurement and that distribution to be a little bit more local.
Right.
This event is awesome opportunity to do that. So just like everything that we do, it's a very holistic approach, right?
Right.
There are a lot of moving pieces and parts. We got it back to Tucson. And that feels really cool, us being in
Yeah.
UNESCO City, astronomy and all of that, right? Our whole team will be there. If you are a buyer or someone that has an interest in networking directly with Arizona-based food producers, you should go to our website and look us up and think about joining us that day. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's super exciting. And I will absolutely be putting links to the Good Food Expo into the episode notes. So, folks, you can just go down there, click it, get all the info you need. So, I'm going to open these questions up a little bit more, be a little bit broader again. And, I think you have illustrated just how impactful local first has been on just like the local communities of Arizona. Now, what may a business owner be experiencing that should indicate that they reach out to you?
Two things, and it's probably more complex than two things, but
Of
we'll start
course.
with two
Yeah.
things, right? Uh, it could be that they have a need or a pain point or a challenge that they are just looking to approach differently, or they could use support or resources around. Or it could be a business owner or a consumer or a community organization or even local government, right?
Right.
Someone that wants to give back and feels like they have mentorship, resources, expertise that they could provide, and they want to activate within our network because they are a localist and they care about buying and supporting local. Either one of those reasons would be a really, really good opportunity for them to reach out to us. And I would even suggest personally calling or emailing a member of our Tucson based team, and you can find us on our website, and just saying, hey, how do I plug in? What's going
Right.
on? Right? Because that conversation is probably going to lead to a really productive place in terms of us finding out together, right? Like,
Right.
oh, this is actually what we can do together. This is how we can work together. Um, and going from there.
Right. And there are so many ways that you help businesses. So I know it's a little hard to just kind of like narrow down, what's like a
Totally.
thing or two things. So I really appreciate that. But another question I have kind of following that is like, what might be a signal that could insinuate a poor fit of a business that might want to join?
Yeah. So I'm actually going to reframe the question just a little bit and
Sounds
say that,
great.
in my opinion, there is no such thing as a poor fit. I think anyone who is interested in reaching out to us should. What
Right.
I would say is that depending on where a business or an entrepreneur or an organization is in their own internal development, they may be more or less ready to take advantage of the programs and services that we have to offer, right? And so, an example I'll give you is, let's say that you are pre business,
Hmm.
you have a business idea, but
Hmm.
it's just that it's an idea, right? And what you really need help with is operationalizing that idea, getting it off the ground. Certainly reach out. Let's have a conversation. Let's do coffee. Let's figure out what resources you need. But we don't fill the same niche in the community here in Tucson, for example, that say Startup Tucson does, because the
Right.
whole point of Startup Tucson is to help you with your startup.
Right.
And if you go to their website, they have a number of really cool programs for early stage entrepreneurs. You should definitely check that out. It's not always linear, right? It's not
Right.
always a straightforward pipeline of A to B, but often that is how it works. And so a lot of our business coalition members here in Tucson are actually Startup Tucson graduates. And pretty
Nice.
much as soon as they finished launching in that business incubator program, they came to us and said, cool, I want to take advantage of your digital marketing opportunities. I want to start networking more actively. I'd like you to introduce me to people in local government. How do I plug in? And understandably, it's a bit easier to plug in when you have things to plug in with, if that makes
Totally.
sense.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That definitely makes sense. Um, and I guess just for like, I'm curious, maybe like a point of clarification. And it might seem like an obvious question at this point, but like, let's say like a local franchisee, like, would that be someone that maybe shouldn't get into local first if they're part of like a bigger franchise chain, or is there still
Um,
room for that?
I don't think, well, okay, first of all, my background as an educator is showing through because it was drilled into me in my graduate school training. There is no such thing as an obvious question, right? Every
Yeah.
question is a good question. No, I really appreciate you asking this question, Connor, because I did not touch on that earlier. Let's say you want to join Local First. You want to be part of the business coalition. What are the requirements for that? So I'm going to read these directly from our website just so we're all on the same page here.
Sweet.
We represent Arizona businesses that meet the following requirements. They must be Arizona based and headquartered. The owner of the business needs to live in Arizona. The business itself needs to be privately held, not publicly traded. The
Okay.
business should be proudly independently owned and not affiliated with a franchise or company that is not headquartered in Arizona. And the majority of the business should exist within Arizona, including multiple locations. And I'm actually going to edit my language and say that it shouldn't be any of those things. Those are just the criteria that we would look for. If you are any of those things, that's fine. Truly, there are plenty of businesses that I would describe as being local adjacent who are incredible community champions and support local in so many different ways. But for our organization, our niche is those businesses that I just described that are proudly locally owned, because to my knowledge, there is no other organization dedicated to their interests exclusively, right?
So I appreciate you breaking that down for us, because that was just something I was thinking about. And I'm sure there might be other folks who are interested in hearing the answer to that question. So for those who are listening and they're getting excited and they want to learn more about Local First, they want to hear more of your insights, join your network, or just get involved, where can they go?
So there are a couple different ways that folks can engage. I would highly encourage everyone to go to our website, sign up for one of our newsletters, as well as follow us on social media on their platform of choice or preference.
Mhm.
And I would also suggest, as I said previously, reaching out to us directly and saying, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm passionate about. If you own a business, maybe telling us a little bit about that and just saying, how can I plug in?
Yeah.
You know, here's what I have to offer, or here's what I need. What could this look like? And then we'll have a conversation and see where we can go from there. I'll give you actually a great example that is timely because I just worked with them. A brand new folk music repair shop just opened up at the old Labor Temple on Stone Avenue downtown, and their
All right.
name is the Soundpost. They went through one of Startup Tucson's programs, and I swear this isn't true for everyone, but
Yeah.
like this is exactly how it went in this, right? They worked with Startup Tucson. They reached out to us, and they just said, "Hey, it looks like you support locally owned businesses. We're brand new, 2 months, just opened
Right.
our doors. We're really trying to get established. We have a number of questions about our operations and what we're doing, but more than anything, like we just want to have a conversation with your organization to see what resources might be available and also like how we could plug in and network with other entrepreneurs."
Right.
Um, that led to a coffee date, me meeting most of the other tenants in their building, which is super fun because they have everything from a retail consignment shop to a punk rock band studio,
Nice.
to tattoo artists, like you name it. There's a lot going on under that roof. And a whole series of other conversations now that are in progress, but are hopefully going to lead to some really interesting places. And they are now proud members of our network. That was just them taking the initiative to reach out. So shout out to Lily, Chris, and Cameron for doing that because you don't always know what's going to be on the other side, right? And
Totally.
they took that leap, and now I think we're going to do some really fun things together. So that's exciting.
That is exciting. That's awesome. That's a great anecdote. Yeah. So, folks, the links are in the episode notes. Do not hesitate to go, click, and connect, please. So, we did talk about this a little bit. You knew it was coming. Do you have any events coming up in the near future that people should keep an eye out for?
Absolutely. Let's say that you are not a foodie or you are not someone interested in making B2B wholesale connections with Arizona food producers. That's okay. We have plenty of other things for you to do. In September, September 4th, and I'll get you all the details to put in the comments, we will be hosting our monthly business mixer. At Proper Shops downtown, that will actually be doubling as Member Appreciation Month for us. So if you are
Nice.
interested in some local first swag, you should come out for that one for sure. Proper Shops is a fun space that we have been programming in for a while now. They are a retail incubation space in downtown Tucson, directly across the street from Hotel Congress. And at any given time, there are, I would say, probably 10 to 15 entrepreneurs and retailers there who are all on relatively short term leases, basically exploring retail business, right? And it's a
Right.
way for them to get their feet wet, whether they're an established business just looking to try something new, or an up and coming business who this is their first venture into that world. This is an opportunity for them to really experience retail foot traffic, try new products, and determine, long term what they want the course of their business to be. Almost all of the businesses in that space are local first members. Some of them we've been working with for quite some time now. They are a great, great crew. And so if you want to hang out with a very diverse crowd of entrepreneurs, along with a wide variety of people from our network, even if you're not a business owner, even if you don't work for a nonprofit or local government, maybe you are just someone in the community that wants to network and build personal or professional relationships, and you just want to get to know some really cool humans,
Yeah.
I would come out for that. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds great. It sounds great. I really wish I could go, but I have a backpacking trip scheduled, so I'll be out
Ah,
out in the Gila.
tragic,
Yeah, tragic.
tragic, tragic.
Yeah,
Backpacking the Gila wilderness. What a sad time that's going to be. I can't
yeah.
imagine why you would want to do that.
I don't know. I'll suffer through it, but we'll make it.
Dude, the heel is beautiful. I told you a little bit about my background as an environmentalist earlier. I just
Yeah,
recently got to go out there for the first time, probably about 6 months ago, and having read, Aldo Leopold and grad school and all these other things, right? It
right.
was pretty wild actually getting to stand on that ground and feel the history in that place and
Totally.
just try to wrap my head around what an amazingly special landscape that is. So I'm
For
very
real.
happy for you in all seriousness. You're going to have a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think it'll be pretty great.
Mhm.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's a magnificent place, and it's one of the larger wilderness areas, like in the United States.
I believe, and here's where your listeners are going to need to fact check me. I believe
Right.
it might be the largest roadless tract of wilderness area in the lower 48.
Wow.
I don't know if that is still true. Anonymous listener, please help me out in the
Yeah.
comments and let me know.
Yeah, please let us know. Message us. Let's figure it out.
Yep.
So, Nick, it was awesome getting to talk with you today. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I have one last question for you. It's the question I ask everyone who comes on this show. And that is, what is one thing out of the many that you love about Tucson?
Oh, you really bailed me out there because if we had ended the show on what Nick loves about public land in New Mexico, that is
Yeah.
obviously not related to Local First or Arizona or Tucson. So thank you for that, allowing me to land gracefully here. Oh, Tucson. So I have lived in technically 6 states and a variety of different places. And Tucson is now home for me.
Yeah.
And I didn't initially think that that was the case when I arrived here, but it has really grown on me to the point where I can't imagine living anywhere else. And the one thing that I really love about this place, no, is not the food, even though the food is superb.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
feel like that would be a cop out though if I told you the food because everyone says the food. Um, the history and the legacy of activism in this place. So if you think about it, Tucson is a tri-national area.
Mhm.
Uh, we are on Tohono O'odham and Pasco Yaqui land. Tohono O'odham Nation is right down the street.
Mhm.
Mexico, as the crow flies, is only about 60 or 70 miles from where I'm sitting right now.
Right.
So just in terms of the history of people and culture in this place, there's already a really, really rich tapestry there. But
Definitely.
then you look at the activism and specifically the environmental activism that has taken place in the borderlands over the last century or so.
Mhm.
Just an incredible coalition of local organizations and activists who have made their mark here over that time. I have only showed up relatively recently within that history, but knowing that indigenous peoples have been here for over 4,000 years, knowing that even the land that I am sitting on right now has changed hands in terms of sovereign nations several times over the last 100 years, the melting pot of cultures and influences and the work that's being done here. I am really, really proud, not only to be from the Southwest, but to be here in this community specifically, because we have a lot going on, and
Yeah.
there is never a dull moment here in Tucson, and that keeps me going. And that is why I work for an organization like Local First, and it's why I call a place like this home now. The desert is just so special. It's not for
Yep.
everyone, and
Yep.
that's okay. But I'll tell you what, walking outside and just really taking this place in, even in the summertime,
Yep.
even when it's 115 degrees,
Yep.
it is still home, and there's no place else like it.
Absolutely. That was a very eloquently stated answer to that question. I appreciate it, Nick.
Thanks.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time. And folks, if you want to reach out, the links are in the episode notes. And Nick, I'm sure I'll be talking to you soon.
Oh, most definitely. Thank you, Connor, again for the opportunity. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in and learning a little bit more about Local First Arizona. If you want to get in touch with me or any member of our team or learn more about what it is we do, both in Tucson as well as statewide,
Right.
look for those links in the chat and Connor will hook you up.
Right. I will. All right. Thanks, y'all. Take care. And that's a wrap for another episode of T Lokes, your go-to podcast for uncovering the untold stories of Tucson's local businesses and nonprofits. A big thank you to our incredible listeners for joining us on this journey of connection and discovery. I want to extend a hearty thank you to Nick Spinelli from Local First Arizona for coming on the show and sharing with us the resources and information that they provide to local Arizonian businesses to help them thrive. Show them some love and check out their links in the episode notes. A big thank you to Louis Sanders from Sound Monk Studios for composing the awesome T Lokes theme music. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay connected with Tucson's vibrant business scene, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback is invaluable, and it helps us continue bringing you engaging conversations. As we wrap up, remember that T Lokes isn't just a podcast, it's a community. Let's keep the conversation going on social media. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or our Discord channel and share your thoughts, suggestions, or even recommend a local business or nonprofit you'd like to see featured on the show. Thank you once again for being a part of the T Lokes community. Until next time, stay connected, stay inspired, and keep supporting the heartbeat of Tucson. Toodaloo.